Thank you.
Thank you.
Ja, Jurgen en ik hebben afgesproken dat we dezelfde fout maken. Hij zei, zal ik de foto vergeten, maar dat werkt alleen als jij het ook doet. Vandaar. Alexander.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, great to have you here.
Awesome to be here.
And we asked all the speakers to provide us with a picture that says something about you.
Yeah.
I had a hunch already what it would be, but can you
Yeah.
explain a little bit about your picture?
This is I do CrossFit. You know, there's a joke about people who do CrossFit. The joke is this: how can you tell if somebody does CrossFit? They will tell you. I've done it for 6 years. This was taken right after my 750th CrossFit workout. And there are many things that make me happy in life. I mean, good food, or a good book, or a great movie, or a good TV show. But CrossFit makes me really ridiculously happy. And I do it all the time, and I do it because I love it. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of that.
Great. Thanks for sharing that with us. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, it's fantastic to be back in the Netherlands. I've been here any number of times. I always love it here. I feel like a substitute Dutch person. You know, the Danes are basically the Dutch of the North, or you guys are the Danes of the South, one of the two. And today I want to talk about a fairly new topic based on my latest book, which just came out in November. And I want to talk about leading with happiness. And the book has a fairly challenging premise, which is this: that the fundamental goal of a business leader should be to increase happiness in the world. And leaders who don't do that are doing it wrong. And that's what I want to talk about. Before I do that, I'd like to know a little bit more about you guys. Just out of curiosity, could we have some lights on in the room? Lights in there we go. How many of you are currently in a manager position? So you're a business leader, a manager somewhere, you have a manager executive position in your organization. That's about, I'm going to say about 30-40% of you, yeah? How many of you are not currently managers but might someday end up in a manager position? That's another 30-40%. How many of you are not managers and think, I'm never going to be a manager? Yes. Your arm came up very quickly. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are in HR? Ooh, a lot of you from HR. Cool. So here's the thing. If you already are a manager, I hope this speech will give you some tips on how to become a good manager. If you're not, if you might someday become one, you can use those tips as well. If you're not a manager, this speech might give you some ideas on what kind of manager you should work for or maybe not work for. And if you are in HR, I hope this speech will have a lot of tips on how we can educate our managers to create happier workplaces. And you might ask, what on earth does leadership have to do with happiness? And a lot of people will say nothing. One very influential article was written in 1970 by the Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman. He'd heard about this idea of corporate social responsibility, and he thought it was a stupid idea. So he wrote this article called "The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Its Profits." And in that article he writes, there is one and only one social responsibility of business: to use its resources to increase its profits. That was all a business should ever do. And he argued that managers who focused on anything but increasing profits should be fired because they were taking money away from the owners. This article launched the idea of shareholder value, this idea that the company exists only to create profits for the shareholders. And I don't think it's not possible to overestimate the influence of this article. This article and the idea of shareholder value has been incredibly dominant in business thinking, and so much leadership is done based on this premise that all it's about is increasing profits, whatever it takes. I think we need to challenge that. Now, Milton Friedman was good with words, so he coined this phrase that the business of business is business. And I think his attitude is incredibly damaging, incredibly harmful, and also incredibly stupid and incredibly wrong. We need to change that, and in my opinion, the business of business is happiness, and that's what I want to talk about today. Now, we heard earlier about Aristotle. How many of you have heard about Aristotle? Everybody's heard about Aristotle. I would like to introduce you to another philosopher called K.E. Løgstrup. How many of you have heard about K.E. Løgstrup? Nobody. I knew it. One person. Awesome. Very good. Okay. This is a Danish philosopher, and he wrote a very, very influential treatise called The Ethical Demand. And in that, he argues that we all affect each other. Every time you interact with another person, you affect that person. And there is an ethical demand on you to make sure that that effect is positive, that you affect the people around you in a positive way. He put it like this: you never deal with another person without holding a little bit of their life in your hand. It may be very little, a passing mood, an enthusiasm you cause to grow or wither, but it can also be a terrifying amount, so that it is up to you whether the person's life succeeds or not. Every time you interact with another person, you hold a little bit of their life in your hand. And when you affect other people, you have an ethical responsibility to make sure that your effect on others is positive. And this is especially important for leaders, because as leaders, we affect other people. We have an effect on other people. That's sort of the definition of leadership, is that we change how people think, we change how they act, we change how they see the world. And that puts an ethical demand on us to make sure that we affect people in a positive way, that our leadership makes them happier. And that's what I want to argue, that good leaders create happiness. And they do it in 4 different areas: for themselves, for their employees, for the customers, and for the wider world. And we're going to go into each of these 4 areas. Let's start with the leader, her or himself. And whenever I think of a happy leader, I always think of Richard Branson. Richard Branson made a bet with another airline executive, another airline owner, and the loser of the bet had to dress up as an airline attendant and serve drinks on the other guy's airline. Richard Branson lost the bet, and here he is, clearly having the time of his life, clearly having a lot of fun. And I think that's just amazing. And this is, for me, the epitome of a happy leader. And you can say, okay, Richard, you're a billionaire. You have your own airline, you have your own tropical island, of course you're happy. But that's not how he sees it. He put it like this: most people assume that my business success and the wealth that comes with it have brought me happiness. But they haven't. In fact, it's the reverse. I'm successful, wealthy, and connected because I am happy. And this idea, I think, goes to the very foundation of what leaders should do. And I think leaders need to start with themselves and be happy. If you want to create happiness around you, you need to be happy yourself. You cannot give to others what you don't have yourself. And a leader who is unhappy at work will affect everyone around them with their unhappiness, because emotions are contagious. And the leader's emotions are the most contagious, because everybody's looking to the leaders, and their emotions affect everyone around them. So my first tip to leaders is be happy and show it. Don't be afraid to be happy, and don't be afraid to show when you're happy. Don't be fake. For God's sake, don't be fake, okay? It's okay to have a bad day, and don't be fake. Don't fake happiness if you aren't happy. But if you are happy at work, why not show it? And many leaders are afraid to do this. Many leaders think, I shouldn't be happy. I'm the leader. I should be serious. I should be professional. I should be competent. And I think that's a real mistake, because you can be serious and competent and professional if you are happy. And it also goes to this idea that many leaders chase success because they think business success will make them happy. And there is some truth to that. But the correlation is much stronger in the opposite direction. And happy people, on average, become much more successful. Have you guys heard about the Grant study? The longest running longitudinal study in the world. It's been running for 75 years now. They followed the same group of men, graduates from Harvard University. They've been following them for 75 years now. And they measure all kinds of things in these men, like how much money they make, how successful they are in life, if they're married or divorced. They measure their health, their weight. They measure, and this is my favorite thing they measure, hanging length of the scrotum. I have no idea why they measure that, but they do, okay? So they can, one of the things they found in this study was that the young men, when they were young, the young men who were happy, on average, ended up being much more successful in life. They had much more business success, much more social status, much more social success, and higher lifetime income. So yes, success does make you a little happier, but the correlation is much stronger in the other direction, and happiness makes you much more successful. Another tip for leaders, so be happy and show it. Another tip for leaders is don't overwork. I know that a lot of leaders think that, I'm the leader, I need to show the way, so I need to work 70, 80 hours a week. This is really, really stupid for two reasons. First of all, it's bad for your life and your health. There is a clear increased risk of heart attacks and strokes for people who work more than 55 hours a week regularly. And you don't get more work done. And I can't stress this clearly enough. The productivity research is incredibly clear. People who work 60, 70, or 80 hours a week actually get less work done than the people who work 40 hours a week because they make more mistakes, they're less creative, they're less likely to look for help from others, and more stressed and tired. So overwork is really, really stupid. And so many leaders, that's their mental model. I'm the manager, I need to work 70 hours a week. Don't. Not only is it taking time away from the rest of your life and your kids and your family, it's not contributing to the business because people who overwork, get less work done. The productivity research is very, very clear. Two more tips for the leaders themselves, how to be happy. Practice gratitude. In the happiness research, it's very, very clear that the happiest people are those who are good at being grateful for the good things they have. And many leaders don't really do this because they see themselves as ambitious and driven. So whenever they have something, they kind of forget about it and take it for granted, and then they're chasing the next thing, right? So they get a promotion, and they're like, that's nice, and then they chase the next promotion. And it's part of their identity for many leaders is that they're never satisfied, they're never happy with what they have, they're always chasing the next bonus, the next raise, the next promotion, the next whatever. But that's a trap, that's a real trap. Because if you can't enjoy the things you have, it doesn't matter how many more things you get, you'll never be happy because you'll never enjoy it because you'll always be chasing the next thing. So this idea of practicing gratitude, being thankful for the good things in your life and the good things in your work life is incredibly powerful, and many leaders do not do this. The final tip I want to give any leader here who wants to be happy, him or herself, is to work for something that's bigger than yourself. Work for something that's bigger than yourself. There's a professor at Yale Business School called Amy Resniewski. She does amazing work in this field, and she's looked at how people make sense of work. Why do people work? And she's found there are three main reasons why people work. Some people have their work as a job, which means I work for the money. It's all I do. I work this many hours, I get this money, that's why I work. Some people see work as a career, which means they work for the advancement. I work so I can get a raise. I work so I can get a higher status job. I work so I can get a promotion. I work so I can, get a bigger company car or whatever. But they do it for their own advancement. And those are the people who have work as a career. And finally, some people have work as a calling. And she doesn't mean like a religious calling, right? She means that they do the work for the work itself. The work is the reason why they do it. And what she's found in her research is that the people who have their work as a calling, where they do the work for the work itself, are happier at work, happier in life, and do better work, and are more successful at work. So many leaders, of course, see their job as a career. They do it because, if I get this bonus, if I do it well, then I can get this bonus, I can get this raise, I can get this promotion. But those people are actually less happy and less successful than the people who have their work as a calling. My favorite piece of research that Amy Resniewski has done comes from West Point, where she looked at West Point graduates. She looked at why did these young men and women go into the military academy of the U.S. Military Officers Academy of the U.S. military. She looked at why they went into this academy, and then she looked at how well did they do in the 9 years they're there, 4 years of studies and 5 years as an officer trainee. And she found out that some people were there for internal reasons. They believed they could contribute. They say, I can create a safer America, or I can create a better world, or I can be a good leader for my men, or whatever, right? So they wanted to give. Some people were there for their own sake, instrumental motivation. They say, I want to go to West Point because then I can get a job in any big corporation in the US. A West Point degree is very, very valuable, very prestigious. Or they say I can get a high-paying job or whatever. And some people had both motivations. Some of these young men and women were going into the school had both motivations. Both, I can contribute and I can get something out of it. And then they looked at who did best. And I want to poll you guys and see what you think. Of these three groups, the one who did it because they could give, the ones who did it because they could get, or the ones who had both motivations, who did you think did best? So by a show of hands, who believed that it was the first group who did it just for them, just because they could give? That's about 67% of you. Yeah? How many would say it was the second group who did it because they could get something out of it? Nobody. Excellent. And how many believe it was the third group who did best, who had both motivations? Yes. And how many of you never raise your hand in public? And you'd think, right, that having both motivations would be better than having just the one, right? You'd be wrong. I was so surprised by this. Those of you who said one, you're absolutely right. The people, the young men and women who did best were the ones who had only the internal motivation where they wanted to give, they wanted to contribute. And what Amy Resniewski says in her research is that if you have both motivations, you can contribute, but you also get something out of it, then over time, the instrumental motivation will eat the other one. It will crowd the other one out. It's called crowding out. So be very careful of that. So my message to leaders is that if you have your leadership job as a leader job as a calling, you will be very good at it. And you might start to get, bonuses and rewards and promotions and raises. And it's fine to enjoy them. It's fine to enjoy those rewards, but don't let them become the reason why you work. Don't let them become the reason why you work. The reason why you work should be something bigger than yourself, some important mission you believe in that you can contribute to. So that was some tips for how the leader, him or herself, can be happy. What about the employees? When I was researching my latest book, one of the happiest leaders I met, I went around the world and talked to a lot of leaders, was this guy, Ben Zander. And Ben Zander is a conductor, symphony conductor, a fantastic person. When I met him, he was 73 years old and one of the most energetic people I've ever met. And of course, many conductors rule their orchestra with fear, with an iron fist. And they believe that if they can create discipline and fear, that's when the musicians, work the hardest and play the best. Ben Zander disagrees. He says, happy musicians play better music. And this is what he said when I asked him. What makes an effective orchestra is people who want to be there, who give everything they have, who are having a wonderful time doing it, and whose eyes are shining, and who are giving energy out to the people around them. And by the way, he measures his success as a leader by how many shining eyes are around him. And I think that was a wonderful, wonderful mission statement for a leader. So this idea that we should make our employees happy, I think is absolutely foundational. You start with yourself, and then you take it to your employees. And many leaders agree with this. Many leaders would say, yes, I want my employees to be happy. I want them to be engaged and motivated. And then they think they can do it with things like this, right? Free fruit, smoothies, coffee, massages, an office gym, ping pong tables. And that'll never work. You can have a workplace with every single one of these things that is still desperately unhappy, because these are not the things that make us happy. These are not the things that make us happy. If you look at the research, what does? Results and relationships. This is what we need to give our employees, preferably every single day. Results and relationships. Results, this feeling that you're good at your job. You make a difference. You contribute, and what you're doing is meaningful. You can see that your work is making a difference for someone who needs it. And then relationships, this feeling that I am valued. I belong. I am valued not just as a coworker, but as a human being. And I have good relationships with my coworkers, with my employees, with my boss, with everyone I'm in touch with throughout the workday. If you look at the research, these are the two main things that make us happy at work, and that is where we need to focus. And as a leader, there are so many simple things we can do to make employees happier, to create results and relationships. Things like saying a friendly, cheerful good morning when you come to work in the morning. Actually greet your employees, show them that you see them. Things like random acts of workplace kindness where you do nice things for your employees out of the blue. Things like celebrating successes or things like positive feedback. All of this is really, really good at building relationships, and I think that's what the leader of the future needs to do, build relationships. Of course, many leaders focus mostly on results. I think that's a mistake because results is not very powerful at building relationships. Relationships is very powerful at building results. Positive feedback, praise, and recognition are incredibly important. I'd like to show an example. This is from a company in New York called Next Jump. I was just there, visited them several times. I was just there a month ago. I also interviewed there. They have two CEOs, two co-CEOs at this company, Charlie Kim and Megan Messenger. And I interviewed them about their culture and the amazing culture they've created. And one of the things they do is they have this amazing practice for positive feedback for their employees. And here's the cool thing. Once a year, they celebrate sort of the top 5 employees. And these are not the 5 employees who did the best work. These are the 5 employees who help others do great work. And I want to show you an example from one of their ceremonies last year where they celebrate a guy called Joe. And listen to what his manager says about Joe.
Joe cares deeply for everyone he works with. When you ask people to describe him, the word you'll hear most often is patient. When you have a problem, Joe will listen patiently. He'll ask questions and really try to understand what's happening. You don't feel rushed. Even if he has 101 other things on, right then, he has all the time in the world for you. And then, when you finish venting, he'll set about helping you. Olivia, a fellow engineer, is starting to gasp. He's always there. Whether that means patiently sitting for 4 hours while you go over and over an upcoming presentation, fixing some code that you screwed up so that you can make your trade work, creating long-term technical growth plans to help you become a better developer, or just being there, guiding you so that you can figure things out for yourself. Joe's patience and understanding make him someone you can always go to for help, with no judgment or time limit. Because of all of this, Joe's care for his team, his desire to be there to help others tackle demons that he's faced, and his patience in coaching people time and again, is what makes Joe an amazing colleague, friend, and a vendor. I am very proud to ask Joe Rogeri to step forward and accept his vendor's badge.
Is that fantastic? By the way, when you are presented as one of these 5 Avengers, they fly in your parents. They really want your parents to be there to hear how awesome you are, and they especially want your mom to be there. I think that's just fantastic. And praise and recognition are incredibly powerful in creating happiness at work because they create results and relationships, right? When you praise someone, you tell them that you show them they make a difference, they contribute, they create results, they create value, and also you create relationships because if you praise me, it means that you've seen me. It means you know what I do. It means you care about me enough that you actually tell me about all my good qualities. And nothing is more powerful in building relationships than knowing that somebody else sees my good qualities. This is incredibly powerful and sadly incredibly rare in many, many workplaces. Would you agree that positive feedback is rare in the Netherlands? Yeah? So this is one of the most important things we can teach managers is actually to give positive feedback, to give praise and recognition. There are many, many others. And the good thing is that a lot of these things that managers can do are incredibly, incredibly simple. Let's move on. So we looked at the manager, herself or himself. We looked at the employees. What about the customers? I have a little riddle for you. I want you to imagine that you are the head of a store that sells a lot of different products, and one of the products you sell is umbrellas. Now, complete the following sentence. When it rains, the price of umbrellas should go down. Exactly. Now, most business people, if you were Milton Friedman, what would you say? Up, right? Shareholder value. But if you were the head of IKEA, you would do this instead. There's a rainy day, a sunshine price for umbrellas, and a rainy day price for umbrellas. And when it rains, umbrellas at IKEA are cheaper, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. Now I realize that umbrellas are probably not a huge percentage of IKEA's annual revenues, right? But it's still a nice thing to do. And why do they do that? Because they want their customers to be happy. Does anybody here know what IKEA's mission is? IKEA's mission statement? to create a better everyday life for the many people. Not for the elite, but for the many people. And I think that's a beautiful mission that is all about creating happiness and a better life for as many people as possible. So I think this is a wonderful example of something incredibly powerful, which is that we need to forget about customer satisfaction and instead measure and focus on customer happiness. Have you stayed in a hotel recently? Yeah? Then when you come home, you get an email with the hotel satisfaction survey, right? And I got one from a hotel in South Africa a while back with, and I'm not kidding, over 40 questions. How satisfied were you with the check-in experience? How satisfied were you with the waiting time at check-in? One of the questions was, how satisfied were you with the light in your room? That is a really stupid question to ask in a customer satisfaction survey. And also, making the customer satisfied is incredibly unambitious. I think we need to look way beyond that and actually make our customers happy. So instead of measuring customer satisfaction, let's measure customer happiness and focus on that. Here's a good example. How many of you know Pret a Manger? Yeah, they're all over England. Are they in the Netherlands yet? Not yet. They're coming to Denmark now. Yes. So they're on every street corner in London, and they're on every street corner in New York. They're all over the world. And you know how many cafes have these loyalty cards. Every time you buy a cup of coffee, you get a stamp on the card, and when you have 10 stamps, you get a free cup of coffee. Does that make anyone happy? No. Not really, right? The idea is to keep you coming back, but when you get that free coffee, it's not like you're surprised. It's not like you're happy because, you earned it, right? It's your goddamn right. Give me my free coffee. So that's one of those things I think makes people satisfied, but not really happy. Now, Pret don't have these loyalty cards. They have a different program where every Pret employee can give any customer a free coffee for any reason whenever they want. There are no rules, no regulations, no fixed amount of how many coffees you can or cannot give away. It's just that if you see a customer who you believe should get a free cup of coffee, you can give him that. So it can be a customer who's having a bad day. Here, you look like you're having a bad day. This coffee's on me. Or it can be a customer who's having a good day. It can be a regular. Oh my God, you're in here all the time. The coffee's free today. Or it can be a new customer. I've never seen you before. Have a free cappuccino. Or whatever you want. And can you see how that would make people happy? Just out of the blue, you get that free cup of coffee. Makes the customers happy. By the way, it makes the employees really happy because they have freedom in deciding who gets that free cup of coffee, and they get to surprise and delight the customers. I think this is a wonderful example of customer happiness over customer satisfaction. Another great example is Zappos. When you've interacted with a Zappos employee, you've called them on their phone line or you've chatted or emailed, they don't send you a 40-question customer satisfaction survey. They send you one question, which is this one. Do you feel that the Zappos family member you interacted with genuinely cares about you and your reason for contacting us? Yes or no? There's the word feel in there. Do you feel? It's emotional. And did that person make an emotional connection with you? Do you feel that that person honestly cares? I've been to Zappos, visited them 5 or 6 times. It's an amazing, the atmosphere and the mood is amazing. If you're ever in Vegas, go there. You can get a tour of the Vegas HQ for $19. Totally worth it. 1 hour, an hour and a half, where they take you around the whole place and talk to you about the culture. I did a speech there last year, and while I was walking around the office, there was a lady, one of the customer service employees, hangs up the phone. She's done talking to a customer. She stands up, and she starts dancing around the office. Because she was having a great day, and I talked to her. And she told me that she just talked to a customer, and they spent 2 minutes, handling his question, and 20 minutes talking about football. Yeah, turns out they're fans of the same football team. So they spent 20 minutes talking about, how do they think they do this season? What do they think of the coach? What do you think of this player? And that's perfectly okay. That is perfectly okay at Zappos because they want the customers to be happy, not just satisfied. And by the way, if you can make your customers happy, not just satisfied, they will stay with your company much, much longer. And maybe there's a competitor who is a little bit cheaper with the same product. They will still stay with you because they have an emotional connection to your organization. I think this is incredibly powerful. So this makes good business sense. It increases customer loyalty. But above and beyond that, what you get out of this is the satisfaction of knowing that we make people's lives better. Our customers, the people we're in contact with, we actually make their day a little happier, a little brighter, a little better. And that, again, makes the employees happier. This is also, here's another thing they do, where they send out these handwritten cards to customers. And I think that's another fantastic way of creating that emotional connection. This is also about doing the right thing for the customer. Not the right thing for your organization, not the thing that will impact your bottom line the most right now, not about wringing as much money as we can out of the customer. It's about doing the right thing, not for your company, but for the customer. One of the happiest workplaces in Denmark is a bank with a rather unfortunate name. This is the Middelfart Bank. Not big fart, not little fart, middle fart. There's a town in Denmark called Middelfart. I used to live in Middelfart. It's a lovely place, okay? One of the best workplaces in Denmark, an amazing culture. And during the financial crisis, or leading up to the financial crisis, all of the other banks in Denmark had recommended all of these very risky investments to their customers. Middelfart didn't do that. They were very conservative, but there was one investment that they recommended, that, by the way, all the banks in Denmark recommended, that ended up to be, it looked like a very solid, safe investment, but it ended up being completely fake. And the Danes lost a collective 500 million euros on that paper. And all the other banks in Denmark were like, sucks to be you. I know we recommended that investment, but you made it, so we're not responsible. You lost the money. Too bad. We can't help you. Middelfart realized that they had no legal responsibility to help their customers in this situation, but they felt bad. They felt like this is not right, because I know they made the investment, but we recommended it. So they actually ended up buying back that investment from all of their customers. All the customers would invest in this, so they didn't lose any money. Ended up costing them 3.5 million euros, which is a lot of money for a small bank. But they did the right thing. They did the right thing for the customer, and their employees felt so proud knowing that they worked for a company that does the right thing for the customer, not just the right thing for the bottom line here and now. And I think this is part of making the customer happy. Thinking in terms of what works for them, not just what works for us. Excellent. So we've looked at the manager, we looked at the employees, we looked at the customer. What about the wider world? I think it's incredibly important that the company looks beyond just our little world, our employees, our customer, and into the wider world, the wider community, and say, how can we help create a better world? And I think this starts with having a vision or a purpose for the company that is bigger than just the company. This goes back to what we talked about earlier with jobs, careers, and calling, that you don't just work for yourself, you work for something bigger than yourself. Does your company have a purpose, a vision, a mission? Yeah? How many of you can actually remember it? Only half of you? Interesting. Having a good vision is hard. I did a speech at the London Business School about 10 years ago, and they had their vision on a big plaque in the lobby, and I took the picture. It's a very bad picture, but here it is. Our vision is to be the preeminent global business school. What is wrong with this vision? It's about themselves. They want to be the best. It's not about how they can make the world better in any way. It's about themselves. This is not a vision. This is a goal. And those are not the same. It's a fine goal. It's a good goal to have, but it's not a vision. A vision needs to be about something that's bigger than the company itself. They now changed it. Their vision now is to have a positive impact on the way the world does business. Now it's a vision. Now it's bigger than themselves, and that's what a company needs to have. One of my favorite examples is this from a software company in Serbia. In Serbia's second biggest city, Novi Sad. It's an IT company with 135 employees. They're called Vega IT Sourcing. And their two founders, Sasha and Vladan, when they were starting the company 10 years ago, wrote this down as their vision, saying, our dream is to create a happy and successful business so we can use its success and power to create a better world. And I think that's just absolutely beautiful. And they do that in so many ways. Just 2 weeks ago, they told me they arranged a charity run for all IT companies in Serbia. Over 300 people paid to participate. Vega covered all of the costs, and all of the money went to a home for orphans in Serbia. So this idea that our success is not just about the company, it's actually about creating a better world. I think that's absolutely essential, and I hope your company has that. And a good purpose is ultimately about happiness. It's ultimately, you can recognize good company purpose by the fact that it makes someone somewhere happier, right? Our dream is to create a better world. That makes people happier when we help orphans, for instance. And I think a good company purpose is ultimately about happiness. And if you look at your company vision, your company purpose, and you can say, we could achieve that goal and nobody anywhere would be any happier, then it's a really bad company vision. And this is because happiness is the ultimate why. That's what Aristotle said. That's what Epicurus said. That's what Løgstrup said. That the ultimate reason why we do anything is because it will make us happier, or we at least think it will make us happier. You can even extend this to suppliers. If your company has vendors, suppliers, make them happy. How many of you like ice cream from Ben & Jerry's? Yes! That is amazing ice cream. I was just at their headquarters in Vermont 3 weeks ago. Amazing place. And they say that their success is not just for themselves, it's about everyone in their ecosystem. It's about the farmers and the suppliers and the local community and the customers and their employees, and they're trying to create linked prosperity for all of these groups. It's not just about themselves. And what about the shareholders? Milton Friedman, right? Of course we should make the shareholders happy. They're an important part. They invested their money in the company. They should be happy too. But here's the good thing. Happy companies make more money. So even if we believe in the shareholder value paradigm, this is still the right thing to do because happy companies make more money for any number of reasons. Lower employee turnover, lower absenteeism, higher creativity and innovation, higher productivity, higher sales, better profits, better bottom line, higher growth, higher stock price, and so on, and so on, and so on. Yes. Here are just a few of the many, many advantages that happy companies have. Awesome. So here's the main point, that good leaders create happiness for these 4 groups: themselves, their employees, the customers, and the wider world, the wider community. This is how we recognize good leaders. This is what good leadership is by its definition when we do this. And bad leadership is the opposite, when we create unhappiness for the leader herself, himself, employees, customers, and the wider world. Now I realize that maybe you're not the CEO. Maybe you can't change the company vision, right? Maybe you're not in charge of 100 people. Maybe you're not even a manager. So maybe you're thinking like, what can I do? Well, you can't do everything. That's for sure. If you are the CEO, you have a lot more degrees of freedom, and I urge you to use that to create even more happiness. You know what Spider-Man said? With great power comes great responsibility, right? Yeah? Actually, I know. Uncle Ben said that. Thank you. That's the second time that's happened. No, Spider-Man didn't say that. His uncle said it. Yes, thank you. He says it later in the movie. But what you can do is you can do what you can with what you have where you are, as Theodore Roosevelt put it. And that's what we all need to do. Here's a question, though. Can leaders learn this? What if you're in HR in an organization where this doesn't really describe how leaders act? Can leaders learn this? And the answer is yes. The answer is a very, very, I would say the answer is yes, but. The answer is yes, most leaders can learn this, but they have to want to learn it. And some leaders don't want to learn it. Some leaders are stuck in the old way, and the best thing you can do is identify and fire those leaders as quickly as you can. Get them out of your organization, because they are going to create so much misery and frustration for everyone around them, and lower productivity and ultimately hurt business results. So the answer is most leaders can, but they have to want to learn it. What if you work for a boss who doesn't want to learn it? What if you work for an organization that will never value happiness at work? Well, I have good news. International Quit Your Crappy Job Day is only 2 weeks away. March 31st. This is something we came up with 5 years ago because so many people are unhappy at work, but they stay in their unhappy jobs. We want more people to quit. So we announced March 31st, International Quit Your Crappy Job Day. There's a website called internationalquityourcrappyjobday.com. On that website, there is a test. You can take 10 questions. Should I quit? Is it time to quit? A lot of articles you can read. You can read stories about other people who have quit their unhappy jobs. And I've talked to so many people at conferences around the world who have either quit because of this website or who quit and then found the website and then felt better about quitting. So if that's where you are, if you work for an organization that only cares about the bottom line, that is stuck in the shareholder value paradigm, if you work for a boss who's a complete jerk, well, now's your chance, March 31st. Of course, this is just a provocation. Every day is Quit Your Crappy Job Day. Yeah. I also want to mention that if you want to know more about happiness, where I talked to Rhea and Lucas, if I could mention this, we have a conference coming up in Copenhagen, May 17 and 18. And if you want to know more about happy leadership, this is your chance. We have some amazing speakers coming to talk, including Gary Ridge, who's the CEO of WD-40. Do you guys know WD-40? The spray lubricant? Yeah? Every home in the world has a can of WD-40 somewhere. And he's going to talk about how he created a billion-dollar company with happiness. We have Rich Sheridan, who's the author of Joy Inc., a fantastic book. So 2 full days about happiness at work and happy leadership. So if that's something for you, come check it out. Come ask me. It's going to be amazing. There's also my book. You can read all about that at leadingwithhappiness.com. And I have an offer for you guys. And Rhea and Lucas don't know I'm doing this. So here's the thing. If you connect with me on LinkedIn and mention that you are at this event, do this in the next couple of days, I will send you the ebook for free. Connect with me on LinkedIn, mention HPBB, this thing, and I'll send you an ebook for free. Awesome. So let me wrap up. I've saved the most important point for last, because what is the essence of all of this? What is it all about? And here's the thing. We know from the happiness research, this is the number one finding from the happiness research, is that if you want to be happy yourself, the best thing you can do, the most effective thing you can do, is make somebody else happy. We found this in study after study after study, that when we do nice things for ourselves, it does make us a little happier, sure. But when we do nice things for others, it makes us a lot happier. And by the way, it also makes the other person happier, which is like a double bonus, right? And we know this from so many studies. And I think it says something incredibly powerful about us as a species, that we derive more pleasure from pleasing others than from pleasing ourselves. Like I said, there are so many studies that show this, and this is my favorite. This is from Germany, from the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig. And what they do in these studies is they take a toddler, a 2-year-old, and stick that kid in a room with a parent. Now, the parent does nothing. The parent is only there so the child feels safe. And then there is an adult somewhere in the room who needs help. And then you watch what these kids do. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is our true nature as human beings. More than anything else, we want to be happy. And we want those around us to be happy. And if we can remember that in our leadership and in our businesses, we can not only create much more successful businesses, we can create a happier and a better world. And I hope I've inspired you guys to do this today. Thank you.